Hello, hello. Welcome back to Peak Northwest, an outdoors and travel podcast by the Oregonian and Oregon Live, dedicated to the adventure and exploration of our beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm Jamie Hale.
And I'm Jim Ryan. And together we take you to some of the most beautiful and interesting destinations in our region, discussing where to go, what to do, and places to see. But first, we want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, Mid-Columbia Medical Center, which provides specialty care for athletic injuries in Portland and beyond. Thanks so much for supporting the show. And today, Jamie, I gotta say, I have a hankering for a long weekend.
Don't we all? Don't we all? You know, it's officially that time of year, you know, when we set our sights beyond our winter and early springtime routines, get outside a little bit more often with the longer days. And, you know, if you ask me, hey, let's put some plans into motion for trips that take us just a little bit farther from home.
Yeah, Jamie, 100%. I've been better than usual so far this year, getting on the move and taking some trips in the early part of 2022. But as springtime wears on, it's just natural to get excited about making plans, right, for the weeks and months ahead. We all know that, you can cover a lot of ground on a standard 2-day weekend. But I was thinking we could maybe mix things up just a hair, Jamie, and scheme a selection of trips that are best taken with an extra day off.
Yeah. It's that luxurious 3-day weekend, Jim, right? It's when you can really actually settle in and not worry about, getting a little bit of sleep and then driving back home the next day. You want those couple of nights to be out there at least.
Yeah. When you set your sights a little bit beyond, that kind of few hour range that you're willing to drive, say Friday night to give yourself a little bit more time, or on back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. For me, Jamie, that falls in the several hour range. I really don't want to do that 2 days in a row for a standard weekend if I don't have to, if there's not something so compelling. And, Memorial Day is coming up. That's a 3-day weekend for many of us. The weather is getting a little bit more, a little bit more reliable, though some snow in the recent past here in Portland belies that a bit. But Jamie, there are lots of possibility, springtime, summertime, rife with good options that require a little bit more driving than maybe you want to do in 2 days.
Yeah. And, look, Oregon is a pretty big state. Yeah. It's there's a lot of stuff out there, and there's a lot of great stuff that is in the farther reaches of the state or up in Washington, or down in Northern California, even. If you are so daring to go into California, Oregonians, there's a lot of places that are just some of the most beautiful destinations in this region and in this country, frankly, that if you're willing to drive just a little bit farther, if you're willing to give yourself just a little bit of an extra day, you can really enjoy them so much more.
Yeah. So we have thrown together, that makes it seem willy-nilly. We have compiled a list of several of those places that may be best served if you have a little bit of extra time to spare. And Jamie, the first on our list, a place that I really would love to spend more time but have not, the little town of Joseph, which I know you particularly enjoy, coming in at a cool 5.5 hours from our office in downtown Portland.
Yeah, Joseph, when I think about places I want to spend more time getting to, Joseph is like the top of my list. Yeah. Because I've done the overnighter in Joseph before, and it was a haul. Jim, it's about 5.5 hours to get from Portland to Joseph.
Yeah.
That's a long drive. And there's so much to do there is the thing. So it's so attractive. And so I think it draws people in for that reason. And you've got, the Wallowa Mountains there. Eagle Cap Wilderness in the Wallowas. We've got so many beautiful trails and hikes and backpacking destinations. Wallowa Lake itself is great. Yes. And the town of Joseph is a sweet little spot. They've got the Bronze Forge there. They've got some nice restaurants in town now. They've got the chocolate shop that I love so much. So many good things to see and do in Joseph. Give yourself that extra day to get out there and really enjoy and appreciate it all.
Yeah, that's what I like, Jamie. It's the opportunity to pause a little bit. You're not in town, out of town, moving quick. It's stop and stay a while. And a while can only be an extra day, an extra few hours, but it allows you time to experience a place a little bit more than if you need to turn right back around and head toward home the next day. So in that same vein, Jamie, a place that's closer to 5 hours away from Portland, the Bavarian themed town of Leavenworth, which we've talked about before. This is up in Washington, a great jumping off point, particularly for outdoor activity, similar to Joseph in that way, where there's just an absolute embarrassment of riches right from town, particularly access to an area known as the Enchantments, which is a top of the top class hiking area. Some great climbing in there as well. A place that I really enjoy. Would love to get back to this summer. Or early fall, but the town itself also is worth a stop and worth a stay. You've got good food. You've got, the full Bavarian theme in effect, in the sense of,
yes,
some folks might bristle a little bit at themed towns, and maybe I'm one of those to a degree. I've never really thought about it too much, but Leavenworth does it right to me. I think there's something special about it. They are all in on the Bavarian theme. Somehow it isn't overdone, at least for me.
There's like an authenticity to it. It's like an authentic Bavarian themed town. Like you said, Jim, they go all in on it. So it's not like it's, kind of thrown together. There's a couple places with some old signs. No, they have some serious sausage places, restaurants, some serious, good, authentic German restaurants. So a couple of breweries in town that serve great beer. If you're into that kind of cuisine, it is heaven on earth. If you're not, there's other stuff you can find there too. I found a great bone broth restaurant there once that was really, really good. So they kind of go back and forth between serving, like you said, this is the hiker backpacker crowd, and the people who were there for their Oktoberfest celebration or their winter celebration, who are looking for whatever reason, that kind of Bavarian lifestyle, I guess, for lack of a better word.
It's just a fun place to meander around, too. I think Leavenworth is not a particularly big place by any means. Neither is Joseph. But both offer good walkability, especially Leavenworth offers maybe an outsized amount of window shop, restaurant, grab a drink, get an ice cream, for a place of its size. And I've always had fun there. I'm hoping to go back there this year as well. I've done more than a long weekend there. A couple of friends and I got a place there. Let's see, it would have been in 2020, the fall, back in the throes of COVID. The three of us got together, and that may seem irresponsible. They happen to be now at this point married couple. And I was a happy third wheel on this trip to Leavenworth, and it was a good time. And I would highly recommend making a return or a first trip if you've never been.
I've done the 3-day trip to Leavenworth, Jim, like we were talking about. And I just got to say that you can pack a lot in, like you said. We talk about the food and stuff and the drink there and the outdoor attractions, but there's also stuff like the Nutcracker Museum and the reindeer farm. There are so many places to go, little bakeries, stuff like that. You can really pack a lot in 3 days. And that's what's so cool about it.
Definitely so. The next place on our list here, Jamie, is one that is listed as a great 3-day weekend in our book here. Not because there's a million things to do there specifically, but because it takes a long time to get there. And that is the Alvard Desert, a place we've talked about here multiple times on the show, but it takes 7-some hours to get there and has essentially 1 to 2 main attractions, which is go out on the playa, go to the hot springs, and camp. It is basically the gist of it. But
stargazing.
It's stargazing. Yeah. Stargazing and camping go hand in hand there, right? But you just got to commit to the enterprise, the endeavor of taking a honkin' long drive.
As we've talked about in the show here before, I always advocate for people to do other things in the way. If, 3-day trip to get out there seems about right. If you have more time and you can pair it with other attractions there, it might make it feel like a bit more of a not just a place where you're just driving to get there and then driving back. Steens Mountain is right there next to the Alvard Desert and is a great place to go if you're just doing the loop drive around it or if you're camping up there as well. Really, really primo spot. And then there's, hot springs, obviously at the Alvord Desert, but then also nearby where you can stay the night. So I've done that before where I've stayed the night at, Crane Hot Springs and drove down to the Alvord Desert and stayed the night there and then spent a long day driving back. And that's kind of a nice 3-day way to do it, but definitely check out some of the other things that are in the region. Unless you're single-mindedly on hanging out in the playa, which if you are, good for you. And just make sure you give yourself some time to rest there in between because 7 hours is a long time in the car.
That's a long drive. That's a big day. Why we are doing it on a 3-day weekend or longer, mind you. Any of these places, good for a longer weekend also. Jamie, this one, notably less driving, around the least ish. One of the lesser commitments for driving on our list. The Painted Hills, Jamie, a spot that I know you've spent some good time and very much enjoy.
I love the Painted Hills. And to take it a step further, the John Day fossil beds, which is where the Painted Hills are located, have all kinds of things to see and explore there. So the Painted Hills are just one part of those fossil beds.
Yep.
And you can see the Blue Basin is there also. Some really interesting geological formations, hills that are out there in the desert that have different bands of color in them. Colors that you just don't see anywhere else. Yeah, it's fascinating. And it's also home to a bunch of really prehistoric fossils of animals that do not exist anymore. Toad horses and, weird old alligators and crosses between deer and cats. There's all kinds of weird stuff there.
Yeah.
If you go to the Paleontology Center, this is why I like spending a couple days there. If you want to camp out in there or stay in one of the nearby towns, check out the Paleontology Center that's there in the Painted Hills or just nearby. And they have so many interesting exhibits on the fossils there that you can spend a whole afternoon just learning about the area. And you could spend a couple of days exploring all of the units of the John Day fossil beds. It's a place where you can pop out the Painted Hills and back and, have yourself a really long day or a long 2 days, but give yourself that time and you can really see the full spectrum of what is there.
Yeah. And a quick side note I thought there would be no way that we would get into weird alligators here on this Peak Northwest 3-day road trip. Unless, of course, your 3-day trip, getting on a plane and going down to the Everglades or something in Florida. Weird alligators, all sorts of funky fossils, a fascinating jump back in time. And another spot, we're just rattling them off here, but we just did an episode all about the Southern Oregon coast, specifically its beaches, as well as a couple of things to do while you're down there. But Jamie, this is the epitome of a deal that I don't want to drive all the way to Bandon, which is just over 4 hours, in, say, a standard 2-day weekend. It's a lot. You're covering a lot of ground, and there's so much to see that it's once you've made the trip there, stop, stay, take a deep breath, explore a couple places. And that drive home is going to feel a lot more energized than if you just do a quick zip out and back and call it good.
Absolutely, Jim. I'm a huge proponent of that. Go to Bandon, book some place for a couple of nights, and then explore north and south of there. You can get into the Oregon dunes if you want. You can get into some of the beaches like we talked about in the previous episode. You can check out the lighthouses. You can check out the roadside attractions, the food, the cranberry bogs. There's all kinds of stuff to do around that area. The Southern Oregon coast is particularly beautiful. So if you've not been down there before, definitely give yourself those 3 days and explore a little bit more than you might in just, a day trip to the North Coast, for example.
Exactly that. Well, folks, we have, of course, a few more places to consider for a long 3-day weekend. But first, we're going to take a short break. Okay, folks, we are back talking about a bunch of excellent 3-day trips for your consideration this spring, the coming weeks and months as the weather, knock on wood, gets a little bit more, enjoyable for a long drive, a long weekend for many of us. And Jamie, we're trying to inspire as Memorial Day approaches as the warmer months become our reality here. Take that PTO, take that extra day, plan a good holiday trip for Memorial Day, find reasons to get beyond maybe your normal circle of where you might drive for a standard 2-day weekend. And a spot that I wouldn't scoff at too much for a 2-day weekend. Wouldn't scoff at this place in any regard, but would be particularly attracted to for 3 or more days is Olympic National Park, Jamie. A lovely spot full of all sorts of goodness, and kind of to the maybe beating heart of this park, maybe the most popular place, the Hoh Rainforest Visitor Center, clocking in about 4 hours and 45 minutes from Portland.
Yeah, we did a whole episode about how to explore Olympic national parks. If you are interested in that, drawn to that, go back and check out that episode. We have a lot of good advice there. Yes. But like you said, Jim, I mean, this is a place of unparalleled beauty in the Pacific Northwest. And I just highly recommend taking 3, 4, 5, I mean, however many days you have, and really spending time up there, because there's so much you can see from, like you said, the rainforest to the coast, the wilderness coast, to the mountains, backpacking trips, day hiking, hot springs, beaches. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do there. And, you know, an overnighter is possible, but definitely give yourself some more time to really appreciate and explore that place a little bit more.
If you can, Jamie, if you can make it happen. I would be sad if I didn't make a plug for spring skiing on this episode, Jamie. We all know I enjoy skiing, and I would say springtime is maybe the friendliest time to spend 2 or 3 straight days on the snow. Most likely, generally speaking, not going to be as cold. Maybe have a better chance, probably have a better chance of seeing the sun, having some bluebird, sunny sky conditions. It's a great family activity. And I don't have the statistics to back this up, but anecdotally speaking, folks tend to maybe gravitate toward other things this time of year. And you may not have to contend with as many crowds, which, as any person skiing in a resort would tell you, that's a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah. We talk about this, zigging and people zag situation.
Yep.
That's a great example right there. Beginning of ski season, everyone gets excited to go up there. This is when you see, Highway 26 going up to Mount Hood be absolutely jammed with traffic. Later in the season, people have maybe already gotten their ski fix. Maybe they're moving on to camping, to backpacking, to, kayaking, whatever the case may be. Jim, I would bet you're totally right that there are definitely, statistically speaking, smaller crowds out there in the springtime.
So make that trip. Mount Bachelor and the Mount Hood resorts are primo spots in the spring, particularly on Mount Hood Meadows and Timberline ski area. Great places to go check out. Maybe isn't that far for many of us in the state. Might be farther for some others, but Bachelor and Hood, great destinations throughout ski season. But a particular point of enjoyment in the springtime. You can shed a layer, lather on that sunscreen, go just get some great springtime laps in up at the resort. And I have one more, Jamie, and this is the opposite of a hot take or a surprising inclusion on this list, but it seems natural to end with Oregon's only national park, Crater Lake.
Crater Lake. I think this is the epitome too of this kind of trip, is 3-day weekend.
Yes.
I think I've talked to so many Oregonians who've never been to Crater Lake before. And the reason is that it is a far drive. And I think another reason is that there's not a lot of places to stay right at Crater Lake itself. They have a wonderful historic inn there, and they have some cabins and some campgrounds, but those places understandably get booked up pretty quickly. So, I think a lot of people look at Crater Lake as like, oh, it's, 4 or 5 hours away. I can't really stay right there. I'll just do it another time. And they never end up going. But I mean, obviously it is, it has the reputation it has for good reason. It is stunningly beautiful. It is like nowhere else in, the world, maybe. That's not too hyperbolic to say. It is just absolutely a stunning destination that you have to check out at some point if you're in Oregon. And I think, for folks who maybe are concerned about trying to find a place to stay, I always say, go down to Klamath Falls, go down to Medford. Those are going to be maybe a little bit like an hour drive or so to get to Crater Lake, but do that and have a sure place to stay. So drive down there, spend a couple nights in Klamath Falls, say, and then in the morning, drive up to Crater Lake, do all your stuff, go back. And maybe you can do that a couple days if you have a chance to, but, don't be afraid to stay a little bit farther away if it means you have closer access to the lake itself. Because, Jim, you got to go there. You just got to check it out.
You got to do it. And while you're in the area, plenty of other good stuff to do. Tons of hiking. Diamond Lake is right there as well. There's a resort on Diamond Lake that is potentially a good option. There's camping both inside the national park and outside of the national park. Also camping at Diamond Lake for that matter. Mount Thielsen is right there. Mount Bailey is right there. Loads of good opportunities to get outdoors and really maximize a 3-day weekend. You can kind of plan yourself a little itinerary that involves some sightseeing at the national park, maybe a hike or two, a drive around the lake itself, trip over to Diamond Lake if you'd like, maybe a little camping, maybe a stay at the inn or elsewhere, swing back through Medford, stay in Medford. I mean, you got options galore, but it is nice at clocking in about 4.5 hours from Portland, our home here. That's a drive. And of course you have to do it there and you have to do it back. All that is to say, I hope that while this list is far from inclusive, it gets folks scheming on taking some time off, getting out, enjoying places that are outside of kind of that sphere of easy drivability for many of us. Jamie, we could go on and on essentially endlessly with options here. But this is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 good ones that are bound to inspire, or at least I hope they inspire.
Yeah, Javad, just like you said, take that time for yourself. Get out and explore places you may have not seen before. You'll be astonished at how much that freshness will invigorate you and how much good it does to really take time for yourself and to relax a little bit and enjoy your surroundings instead of thinking about, God, I got to drive up there and drive right back. It does a world of difference to take time to just breathe a little bit and actually appreciate where you are.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself, Jamie. I love the sentiment and hope that folks turn that sentiment into reality as springtime rolls on. So folks, until next time here on the show, you can watch our videos on the Oregonians YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram at Peak Northwest, and view all of our travel and outdoors coverage on OregonLive.com/travel. Please leave us a rating or review if you enjoy the show. And if you want to support this podcast and our local journalism, please consider a subscription to Oregon Live. You can find details, of course, at OregonLive.com/pod support. This episode of the show is produced by me, Jim Ryan, alongside Jamie Hale and Andrew Thien.
Stay safe and happy travels, everyone. Until next time, we leave you with this 10 seconds of Zen.
This month, the spotlight is on our planet. Keep listening to hear a podcast that is making a difference.
Welcome to Not Your Average Joe, the podcast that will make anyone a little less average. I'm your host, Joe Franco, and I'm so excited to get into this. I'm a writer, a TV host, a content creator, and a polyglot, and throughout all of these experiences, I've met some of the most fascinating people all around the world that I'd love to introduce you to. We'll have conversations about different topics, ranging from finance to fitness to language learning and wanderlust. With each episode, we'll dissect real-life stories and turn them into tangible takeaways so that we can all be a little less average. I learn, you learn, we all learn. Don't forget to like and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, not your average Joe. Not your average.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.